So today we have with us a very special guest, Mr. Mansoor Agha Siddiqui, to address the elephant in the room, the civil services aptitude test that has been in news for very different reasons at different points of time. Of late, sir, it has become a lion in the exam. I mean, this
It
is
is,
how it has been looked at.
it has become more scary.
Is it made out to be so difficult? Is it really that difficult? I mean, is it as difficult to even get a qualifying score? I mean, what do you think?
See, the full form of CSAT is Civil Services Aptitude Test. If it is an aptitude test, then this is a test which is more of a personality test of sorts, checking whether you have the aptitude which a civil servant needs to have. Now, if civil servants form the steel framework of our country, then automatically this has to be a test which checks your nerves. And a test which can check you for your nerves has to be scary, has to be difficult. So over the last 5 years, the test has become progressively more and more difficult. It had a certain standardized purpose with which it was intended and it started. But as people rebelled against it, as there were demonstrations across the whole country, especially in the Hindi belt, about CSAT being a test which is discriminatory by nature, and certain sections were removed. So you cannot fool the UPSC. You can bend it, you can force it to do a few things, but it will in the end do whatever is beneficial to the whole process. The process demanded testing in a certain manner, in a standardized manner, and that's what they've been doing. So
Right.
when they were pressurized to make changes in the CSAT, the first change which they made was they removed the easiest part of CSAT.
The decision making
No,
questions.
English language
English language
comprehension.
question. Yeah.
These are 7 super easy questions.
Explicitly English
Yeah,
language.
these were super easy questions where the passage would say that he slept under the open sky, and the question would ask, where did he sleep under the open sky? And you had to answer, yes, he slept under the open sky.
True.
So UPSC went in for removing these 7 questions, and the test has become progressively more and more difficult. As the CSAT came into picture, the profile of students getting selected in the UPSC examination has changed completely. And UPSC has started realizing the benefits of CSAT. That's the reason why CSAT has greater importance. And even though it is a qualifying exam, it does its job.
Right. So I do distinctly remember one statement that is there in the notification, which talks about the suitability of a candidate for a career in public service.
Yes,
And
yes.
one very important word I remember reading there is the mental caliber of the candidate.
Yes.
I think aptly the CSAT Civil Services Aptitude Test checks the mental caliber of the
Yes, yes.
candidate. Coming to this, I mean, I'm reminded of a mindset that I used to have myself when I used to write the exam. Two cases I want to talk about. One year, I went with a mindset that I want to attempt as many questions as possible, very aggressive. And another year, uh, I was very careful. I wanted to be very careful. So, this is the mindset before entering the exam hall. And I must bring to your notice, sir, in the former case, when I was very aggressive, I was anyway careful because there is an exam and I'm actually giving an exam that is important to me. So I was careful. I did not have to tell myself I have to be careful. In that year, I attempted much more and got much better results than the year in which I was wanting to be careful and all of that. So when I think about the mental caliber, it's also important to have certain mindsets before the exam, also for 2 days, the next 2 days. What should be the mindset? What do you think students should?
See, the mindset of a student should depend upon the student preparing properly across the year. And then when they take their mock exams, their strategy should get finalized depending upon the mock exams which they're taking. If students have attempted at least 8 mock exams and they've learned from their mistakes and they have made certain changes in their strategy, then this is something which actually molds the mindset which a student needs to have.
It acts as a guide for
It
them
acts
to
as a guide, yes.
strategize. Yeah.
A student, when he or she sits in the examination hall, they need to be very clear about which question is difficult for me, which question I should not be touching, which question I should definitely attempt, which question is of the type where I end up making a lot of silly mistakes, so I need to be more careful, and which question type I cannot even read properly.
Yeah. So this
So
is in the exam hall. Just before entering the exam hall, what should be the mindset?
before entering into the examination hall,
So
the
we have
students.
about 2.5 hours of gap, and we have one paper that I've already given, which has
Yes.
tested me on point blank, on
And
gunpoint.
there would be a lot of baggage about of that particular paper also.
Yeah, because it
Altogether.
is testing me on gunpoint what I've learned for 1.5 years,
Yes.
and 2 hours. It's like putting a gun on my head and asking me what I have done. So should I? I mean, so there certainly will be implications of what I have done in those 2 hours. I carry forward it to the second paper. Do you think it's a good idea?
So I'll break up your question into two parts.
Yeah.
Mindset which you need to have 2-3 days before the actual examination,
Right.
and a mindset which you need to have immediately after you've completed GS paper 1.
Absolutely.
If I look at the mindset 2-3 days before the examination, then the biggest thing which should comfort you and which should add to your confidence is that CSAT is the only examination for which you have been preparing since the day you opened up your eyes.
Oh, that's a really interesting
So when you opened up
perspective.
your eyes, you saw people giggling and smiling and hugging and kissing you and messing up with your hair and speaking something which you couldn't understand. And these people had expressions, and you were naturally curious. Kids are the most curious of all.
So you've always been evolving in aptitude.
You've been figuring out what's going on in this world.
Yeah.
And this process of figuring out what's going on in this world and how to survive this particular world and excel in it is called as reasoning. And this whole examination, whether the question looks like a mathematics question or it looks like an English question, or whether it is termed as a GMA question, in the end, these are all reasoning questions. Aptitude tests test for reasoning in the language of mathematics, in the language of English, in the language of GMA, etc.
Right. So, I mean, it is
So-
just a microcosm of the aptitude you have developed all your life. So, it
you've
shouldn't
been-
really
if
scare
your
you.
present age is 21 years, you've been preparing for this examination for the last 21 years. You may not have prepared for your history examination during graduation for 21 years, but this is an examination where you've prepared for 21 years for this
Yeah, it is the
examination
mental
particularly.
alertness.
Yes.
It's nothing to do with the
The only
knowledge.
thing which is required at the beginning of preparation or somewhere in the middle of the preparation is you need to make a few corrections in the way you think. So there are different ways of reasoning. There's something called as logical reasoning, which gets tested in this examination. And logical reasoning means the technically correct way of reasoning. Everyone does a reasoning. But what is required for the examination is something called as logical reasoning, which follows a certain set of blind rules. And you have to follow these rules. Now, you may be somebody who reasons in the right manner, as a result of which, when you attempt questions of this particular paper, CSAT paper, you'll realize that you have a knack for these questions and you'll get all of them correct. But there may be a person, and everyone has a different way of thinking. So your way of thinking may not match the technically correct way of thinking. In such a situation, you need to correct yourself. So when you get a question wrong on this examination, you need to find out, why did I get it wrong? What is the right way of thinking here? I'm not saying formula. I'm not talking about concepts. I'm talking about the right way of thinking. If you just correct your way of thinking, you can end up handling all kind of questions.
So, if they can think clearly, that's the
Yes,
secret,
they
I
can
think.
think correctly, I would say.
Right.
But to think correctly also, because the questions have a language of English and maths, you need to be aware about the fundamentals of English and maths also in the first place.
So, what should they be doing for the next 2 days and in between the exams, sir? I mean, 2.5 hours between GS paper 1 and paper 2.
So if I talk about what they should be doing from now till the time of the examination, then during these 2-3 days, they have to first of all tell themselves that they are prepared to whatever extent they could prepare.
This is what life has prepared them for. It's just an aptitude.
This is what life has prepared them for. This is how the world has prepared them for this examination. This is how they themselves have prepared them for this particular examination.
True.
And during these 2-3 days, they just have to be careful about certain very standard things. They have to take care that CSAT being an examination which checks you for aptitude, or for your mind, or for your brain, or for your
Mental
intelligence,
caliber.
then automatically, if they're testing you for your mental caliber, your brain has to be relaxed, composed, calm in the first place.
So, how do you
And-
be calm by, I mean, nobody has become calm by being asked to do so.
Yeah,
So, what do you
so
think? What
if
do you,
somebody tells me to become calm, this is the most difficult thing for me.
yeah,
But
I'll
it
get
is
more
easy-
angry. Eh?
But it is easier when you tell yourself to be calm and try to do things which make us calm. So what keeps us calm? Things which keep us calm are, if you sleep properly, it keeps you calm. Your blood pressure remains right. And if you are eating right, that will keep you calm. Otherwise, if you are hungry, it will make you more tetchy and you will be on the edge. If you are not under pressure, that will keep you calm. For example, if I have to go and talk to one of my senior professors and he finds faults with me, or even if he doesn't find faults with me, I'll definitely have butterflies in my stomach.
True.
So whenever you are impressed by somebody, you put that person on a high pedestal. And when you put somebody on a high pedestal, you have to crane your neck to look at that person, and then you don't behave properly. This is the reason why I keep on reminding students that when you talk to your teacher, a senior teacher that you respect, or your own parents, then your brain does not work best. Your brain works best when you are with your friends, when you are calm, comfortable. That is a time when you are most creative. That is a time when your brain works at 100% potential. And this examination requires you to show your potential by being calm in the first place. Only then you can handle all the different kind of curveballs which appear in case of this
Yeah, the
examination.
moment you're being judged, you naturally become
Yeah.
conscious,
So
and
if
that
you
puts a
feel that you
pressure
are being
on.
judged, if you feel you are being tested, then there's something called as test anxiety which will come into play. And test anxiety is something which bothers everyone in this world.
So simple. Don't let the exam judge you. As simple as
Don't
that. You're not
let
going to
the
be very
exam bug
different.
you, I would say.
Yeah.
It is definitely an examination. I need to be serious, no doubt about it. But at the same time, I have to take care that I do not let it touch my nerves. So I need to have a sense of urgency when I am giving this examination, but I should not feel pressure.
Coming to the exam hall, sir, once the student is in the exam hall, now the process has started. As I said, is the mindset really going to help? I mean, to go for aggressive attempting, or it should it be careful, or how should it be? I mean, one thing worked for me, but I don't know. I mean, do you think there's a
See,
prescription one can give?
mindset should be guided by how you have prepared. Mindset should be guided by how much of preparation you've done. Mindset would be guided by what your performance in the previous year question papers was, how many mock tests you've taken, what have you learned from those mock tests, and you naturally need to have a lot of confidence in your abilities, because if you have confidence in your abilities, then you will automatically end up giving the best shot possible.
So you go blank slate then in the exam and then decide according to the
Yeah,
paper
it
and
would in the end be decided by the question paper.
question paper.
When you have the question paper in front of you and you browse through the question paper, then we normally teach a technique called as the ABC method.
Yeah.
The ABC method basically means that when you look at a question and you cursorily look at what the question is asking, then A stands for Abhi, right now. Do I do this question right now or not? And then you read the question carefully and you attempt it. There's a second category of questions where when you look at the question cursorily, you realize that this is a question which I can do, but I know I'm going to take more time on this question. Maybe I can get stuck. This is a question which falls into the B category, or baad mein, later on. I'll do it later on.
Okay.
Then there's a third category of question which decides whether you're an intelligent person or not, and that is the set of questions which you need to reject.
Chhod do.
So a lot of students end up making the biggest mistake on this examination, thinking that I'm going there to attempt questions and getting them correct. No, your approach has to be, I'm going there to get tested for which questions do I reject.
Yeah.
If I'm good at rejecting questions and I focus upon doing questions, rest of the questions, then I'll end up getting the highest possible score, which I deserve.
So C was chhod do, right?
C is chhod do.
Yeah.
Yes,
A abhi baad mein and chhod do. I think
A
that.
abhi, which means right now, B baad mein, and C chhod do.
Oh,
Don't
that
even
was
look at
very
that.
simple. I mean, I was using all sorts of marks, star and circle
No,
and
ABC
whatnot.
is enough. You can write
ABC
you
was.
can write ABC
I
on the
think
question paper while the
it's a
question
great
paper
advice.
is in front of you.
Yeah, that's a
Before
great
UPSC wakes up to the idea of a completely online examination for CSAT or for Prelims paper one,
In which case only one
we should
question
capitalize
appears.
upon the hard copy paper and pencil examination which we're giving.
Oh, that's an opportunity.
Yeah,
in
it's
that
an
case,
opportunity. It has to be exploited to its benefits.
Right. So coming to the chordo, I mean, particularly, I'm very interested about the chordo kind of questions. And there are certain questions in which there are 4x4 variables, particularly in interpretation, data interpretation, or even for that matter, reasoning questions. 4x4 variables. So therefore, I know that whatever I do, I can't get this in 10 minutes. So that I know I should chordo. But what other type of question do you think we should leave? I mean, do you suggest something to the student that these are the kind of questions, or it's again depends on the student's preparation?
It
And
depends on the
weak
student's
areas?
preparation. When I talk about student preparation, it does not mean the classes which the student has rented or the books that they've studied for CSAT. It depends upon whatever they've prepared for in the last 15 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there are a lot of people who talk about what is the order of difficulty in terms of questions. Normally, aptitude tests have 5 different orders of difficulty: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But I have realized over the years that there's nothing like an order of difficulty. There's a personal order of difficulty.
Personal order.
For every student, the question which may be the easiest in the world for everyone else in the world, it may be the most difficult question for you because you don't know how to do it.
But
It's
are
as
there
simple.
not questions in the paper, sir? I mean, sorry for interrupting, but an examiner sets a question for the students to leave, or rather to waste. I mean, it maybe waste students' time. So, I mean, as I said, this 4x4 questions, 4 variables into 4
So
people,
most of us
4
come,
subjects.
most of us come from an assessment test background,
Right.
which means the kind of tests which happen in case of schools and colleges.
Academics.
Academics. And these tests basically check you for your ability to handle a certain quantum of the syllabus. And if you've proved yourself, you are moved on to the next academic year, promoted.
Correct.
So this kind of a question paper will have 80% of the questions which will focus upon clear syllabus, about a certain percentage which will test you for a higher order learning skills and creative skills. And a teacher who's preparing the question paper may get naughty sometimes and may end up giving a question which comes as a surprise for students.
Right.
This is what happens in case of assessment tests. Aptitude tests are prepared with a different objective.
Okay.
They do not test you for maths, they don't test you for English, they don't test you for other things which we normally think we are being tested for. An aptitude test for things such as mental acuity, sharpness of the brain.
The level of awareness.
To a certain extent, because memory is also part of your aptitude. So there's
No, awareness about themselves, how they react, are they able to hold ground?
I agree. Because in the end, after once your examination is on your head, then self-awareness is an integral part of this preparation.
Yeah.
If you do not know that you end up having butterflies in your stomach and you cannot sleep one night before the examination, then and you have not cured this particular problem, then you are going to face problems in the actual examination day.
Right. And sir, should there be any order in which one has to attempt? I mean, let's say, depending on different category students, I mean, should they attempt the math questions first, the English questions first? English questions, I mean, fairly the passages are there in front of you, the answers are there. So, I mean, is there a particular order depending on different categories?
Order would depend upon the profile that a student comes from.
Yeah, but I mean, because
there are
it
broadly
also,
three profiles of students.
the reason I also ask you is this, because I mean there are certain at times what happens is I've spent 2 hours and I have not been able to see all 80 questions. That is the reason I ask you the order based questions, because if I've spent 2 hours, I'm giving back the OMR sheet, but I know very well that I've not seen 20 questions, maybe 10 out of which were very easy.
Yes, sitters.
So
I
at
would
le-
have
yeah,
done them in
sitters.
two seconds.
So it was only my responsibility to at least see the paper. I mean, so that's the reason I
So when we
ask you
talk
this
about the
question.
ABC strategy, ABC, there's something else which has to happen before the ABC strategy, and that is you need to cursorily scan the paper.
Right.
But when you're cursorily scanning the paper, do not get over affected by certain things. For example, if you're a person who's weak in comprehension, and when you scan through the whole paper from page 1 till the end, you will realize that most of the paper is filled up with comprehension, because a comprehension question is preceded by a long passage. As a result, it will take up more space. So you may get an impression that the paper is more scary.
Right.
So
Lengthier.
don't get affected by this particular thing. Start thinking that the area that I'm weak in, I see most of the paper being filled up with that particular part.
Right, sir. To bring this point home, I was just looking at the papers in the last 2 to 3 years, and fairly, I remember the topics on which the passages are framed are also fairly familiar with at least a student who's preparing for civil services. I mean, there are economy-based passages, there are agriculture-based passages,
Yes.
there are passages on climate change, there are passages on water stress, inequality. I have seen a couple of passages, but earlier I used to see certain philosophical passages for which you may have had the aptitude to read that kind of a passage. But given these kind of passages, these topics, don't you think student will be comfortable at least reading the passage? Forget about answering the questions. I'll come to that. But I mean, do you think the student will face difficulty in just reading the passages? I mean, the familiarity of the topics.
See, the time is of utmost importance here.
Right.
So a student cannot go about calming their nerves by reading the passages as a first step. So I'll talk about it in terms of profiles of students. Broadly, there are 2-3 profiles of students.
Correct.
One profile of students are those who are good at mathematics, comfortable with mathematics.
With a certain background, of course.
Because of their background. They come from a science or a math or engineering background. And these students do not get scared of mathematics. I'm not saying they know mathematics. I'm
Yeah.
not saying they're great at mathematics.
Absolutely.
They're not scared of mathematics. They don't have a phobia for maths.
What they perceive themselves to be.
This is first profile of students. About 60% of my students fall into this category.
Right.
A second profile of students are those who are slightly scared of mathematics, because somewhere around the 7th, 8th standard, when the syllabus of mathematics took a jump, a quantum jump in terms of difficulty level, and the first time it became scary and they could not understand what the teacher was doing on the board, and the teacher kept on scolding them and their marks started going down, and their parents had a hard time during parents-teacher meetings with the maths teacher at least. then a time comes when a lot of maths teachers make the biggest mistake which they can make, and that mistake is they announce to students that your brain does not work in
They're not
mathematics.
good at it.
You are not made for mathematics, or you don't have the brain for mathematics. There are some people who get so ruthless and that they actually end up saying you are not made for mathematics, or you don't have the brains required for mathematics.
And these are all stories,
That is the
myths.
teacher's way of showing frustration that I'm unable to teach you, I'm incapable, that I could not develop the aptitude for mathematics or the interest in mathematics for you. When a student hears this sentence from the maths teacher, believe me, 90% of students actually feel very happy. They've been cursing all the year round for their weakness in mathematics, and when they hear their teacher, their expert teacher telling them that you don't have the brains for mathematics, they tell themselves, I should not be putting in any more efforts now.
Right.
So they, because maths is mandatory, they continue studying mathematics only till the extent that they pass the examinations. And this is the second profile of students.
So it's not only the phobia,
Student
but
who-
also callousness that has developed among the students.
So the maths teachers is responsible for that.
Yeah.
I see a lot of schools having teachers who are now, if I talk about maths profile, teachers profile, most of the maths teachers are male, middle-aged, married with a lot of kids, frustrated because their less qualified colleagues, they have risen up, they are minting money, and they have got a lot of respect in society. So I'm a maths teacher, so I don't need to put in any disclaimers here. Uh, so these teachers are responsible for creating the phobia for maths.
Right.
So any student who has realized that my brain doesn't work in maths and takes a route where they avoid mathematics as much as possible, when they encounter mathematics as part of the CSAT paper, then even if the question is a sitter, even if the question says what is 2 plus 2 equal to, they will look at the question and they'll think, I don't know maths. So even if this question looks easy, it must have a catch inside it, because of which I should not be attempting it, because this will result in negative marking.
So this is the second category. So
This is
we
the second category.
Yeah.
A third category of students are those, I would say, they are generally students who are good students, and they're good readers. And this is the category which is the rarest of all. This is the category which gets selected in UPSC. This is the category which has to put in least effort in preparing for GS paper 1, for paper 2, for the mains exam, and for the interview. These are people who are well read.
Right.
They enjoy books.
So do you prescribe a particular order for these
So
categories?
everyone has different order.
Yeah.
If somebody is excellent at mathematics, then automatically that person will gravitate towards the questions which are more based upon mathematics.
So they should go for it.
So they should always start from their area of strength. Begin with the area of your strength, which is basic numeracy. Move on towards GMA, which is diluted mathematics, which does not have formulas. But then, yes, there are certain tricks which are involved and methods which are involved. After you've handled GMA, you move towards comprehension. And when you're attempting comprehension, tell yourself, I have to somehow get as many marks as possible in case of this area. This area does not require formulas. This area does not require any concepts. But if you can understand the passage with a calm mind, then I can do the question also.
Right.
Because after a calm mind, if I look at answer choices, the answer choice which looks best is intuitively the best answer also.
Right. So the second category can
Second
start
category,
with the
anyone who has a fear of maths, such people should start with comprehension, but tell themselves, I don't need to understand this passage.
right.
I'm not going to get tested for this passage. And with a calm mind, read the passage. When you read the passage with a calm mind, your brain will work best.
Right.
Because the moment you think that question will be based upon this passage, then automatically you'll get test anxiety, thinking that I need to be careful about understanding each and every word which is written here, understanding each and every concept which is written here, remember everything, and so that when I look at the question, I will be able to tick an answer. No, it doesn't work that way.
So when I was looking at the comprehension questions, last 3 to 4 years, I've been 26 to 30 questions have been asked on it. And the challenging thing is there's only one question for every passage. That's number one, makes it lengthier.
Yeah.
But in addition, my attention also goes to different words that are asked in the questions. There's what I call implication. So sometimes they say inference, sometimes they say assumption, and now off late I've been seeing this very weird phrase, so to speak, which says it is rational, which is the most logical, rational, and practical implications of the statement by the author. I mean, I fail to understand. Sure, the question is really, is there a trick when I'm reading the passage? Should my mindset change in each of these questions, nature of question, or categories of questions? I mean, in some, by this, what I mean really is, in some questions, should I go beyond the passage, or should I, so in some questions, should I just reinstate whatever is there
Yes,
in the
yes.
passage? So, I mean, is there a trick to this?
See, this is something which good students figure out under the guidance of a good teacher.
Right.
For example, if you look at the word inference in the Indian context, if I give you a page to read and then I ask you, what can you infer out of it? Then a normal Indian would read it, understand it, and would give their own analysis, their own critique, and their own opinion based upon whatever they've read.
Yeah.
This is not inference in an aptitude test.
Okay.
Inference is something which is a safe answer. A safe answer is always an answer which is written down here. So, on aptitude test, you put your finger on a particular sentence and say, this is my inference. Now, it is your inference because it is 100% supported by whatever the passage on top
So
says.
evidence is very
Yes.
important for
So
inference.
this is where the name for reading comprehension, which appears in CSAT, comes from. This kind of reading comprehension is called as evidence-based reading comprehension. It's a technical term.
Right.
Where answers of question have to be evidenced from the passage.
Evidence from the
But
passage.
does that mean that answer of every type of question is written in the passage? No. Now you need to understand there are certain questions whose answer is not written in the passage also.
So I'm assuming assumption-based question,
Now-
because I'm assuming again.
No,
is,
again,
I mean,
in a lot
drawing.
in a lot of cases, there will be an assumption question which will say what has been assumed by the author in the passage, and the author may actually end up confessing that I'm assuming this thing and then reaching a conclusion.
Sometimes.
That is also an assumption.
That's possible.
And there may be times when the author has not stated the assumption, but you've got to figure it out by a dominoes method that we know about. It's called where you mismatch. Where you find a mismatch between two sentences and you connect that mismatch in a logical manner and you end up getting your assumption. But that is more, that's a question which is more tilted towards critical reasoning. All questions would not fall into this category. Plus, there are certain games which an aptitude test plays with you. And those games are hidden games. There are certain things which are tested in a covert manner.
Okay.
And there are certain things which are tested in an overt or open manner. So your mathematical skills are getting tested in an overt manner.
Right.
But mathematics question will have certain components inside them which are tested in a covert manner because of the kind of confusing language which the question has.
Can you illustrate this with an example, sir?
So if I just I start with comprehension. Comprehension has three broad type of questions. My students would know about all three of them. There are questions which are called specific questions whose answer is written in the passage.
Right.
You just have to find it in
Overt.
the right manner.
So this is overt.
Absolutely overt. And the answer is so overt, so openly, clearly written there that an untrained student may feel guilty picking up that right answer, thinking that this is written here. How can this be the answer? How is it testing me for my intelligence? But you need to know which questions
This
the
is the
answer is
toughest
written there.
exam, and all of those assumptions
Then-
we made about the
Yeah.
exam.
There's a second category of questions in comprehension which are called as general questions. General questions answer is based upon the whole passage taken together in a bird eye view of sorts.
Right.
So answer is based holistically on the whole passage. Answer may not be written down in the passage. Out here, in case general questions, the answer may not be written down, but people may say that you got to step out of the passage in order to pick up an answer.
Is this a crux-based questions? I mean, so
Yes,
crux.
yes. Questions which ask you what is a suitable title for the passage, what is the crux of the
Crux
passage.
of the passage.
Then there are the MCP questions called as which use the word main, central, or primary. So they'll say what is the main idea, central idea, primary idea,
I see.
theme, purpose, message of the author in this passage. Message is one word which UPSC finds very cute, and 90% of the questions of general type, they'll say what is the central message of this passage. General
So
questions.
these are covert questions.
There's a lot of covert element here. Third type of questions are the ones which actually test you for your mental acuity, sharpness of your brain. These are called as perception questions. Now, in this category fall all the critical reasoning questions, which means as what has been assumed by the author, what will strengthen the author's viewpoint, what weaken up the author's viewpoint.
Implications.
So I'm coming to that. Weaken up the author's viewpoint, what will help us evaluate the validity of the argument of the author, which is evaluate questions. There'll be questions which are called as paradox questions, where the passage has got two conflicting information and the question asks you which one of the following is going to resolve this particular paradox. Again, when you're resolving a paradox, the answer will be out of scope of the whole passage as such, and you have to step out of the passage to give an answer, and needs brains.
Right.
Then there'll be questions where which are called as implied idea questions.
Implied
A lot of people call them as inference questions, but whether the word used in the questions language is infer, conclude, imply, hint, suggest, or the question says which of the following must be true based upon the information given above, etc. All of these are questions which require evidence which is given in the passage.
Even implication based questions
Yeah,
require
yeah.
evidence.
So the answer of these questions would fall into a few categories. Answer of an inference or implied idea question would fall into various categories, such as there may be a question whose right answer is written in the passage very clearly in a certain sentence. You just
Right.
have to hunt back for the answer. A second category of questions would be those where you bring information of two different sentences together and you end up getting your answer. A third category, and that is a predominant category in case of CSAT, is the category which is testing you whether for your attitude as an IAS officer, perception as an IAS officer.
Okay.
If this is supposed to be a aptitude test for civil services, then you need to be somebody who not only has the aptitude or the brains for it, but you also need to be somebody who has a personality for it.
Right.
So, in case a lot of questions of comprehension, surprisingly, an answer choice which shows a negative attitude towards the world, a pessimistic attitude, is the wrong answer always.
So I mean, you're supposed to put yourself in the shoes of the author and then take a call. And
No,
in those
you have to
questions,
step into the shoes of an IAS officer. Think that this is a file which is kept in front of me. This is a problem. I need to solve it.
Okay.
So, what does an IAS officer do? An IAS officer goes in for mitigating the problems which people are facing in his or her jurisdiction.
Right.
So, anything which decreases the problems which people are facing because of a problem. Second is he has to be good at solving the problems. So an IAS officer has to be a problem solver. And in order to be a problem solver, you first of all need to be a positive person who believes that problems can be solved.
Yeah.
You need to have the confidence that yes, I have the capability and my country has the capability to solve this particular problem. So that positive attitude is also tested. So any answer choice which says nothing can be done in this particular situation and this cannot be solved is always a wrong answer.
If there is a
Across
problem,
all of these years.
so if there is a problem in nutshell, there, I mean, it's not that there has to be a solution. There is a problem because there is a solution, right? So
Yeah, put it
yeah,
that,
that's
that's
the
best
kind
way
of
to put it,
attitude one.
that the solution is created first and the problem is created later.
Sir, what is this most logical, rational, and I'm very troubled by this.
Yeah.
I mean,
Again,
and
this is the covert part of the testing.
right,
They freak you out by certain words.
right. I mean, I don't know whether
In a
it is
critical
right.
reasoning question of comprehension,
Yeah.
they will never ask you which one of the following weakens the argument of the author in the passage. They will never ask you which one of the following weakens the conclusion given in the passage above, etc. Instead, they will say which of the following is the most weakening answer choice to the argument above. Now, when a student encounters these two words together, most weakening, the first impression which they need to get, they end up getting is that there are possibly more than one answer choices which are weakening the conclusion of the argument above.
Okay, they're distracting you.
And they need to have a preference order in their head about which one has to be preferred over which one.
Right.
And then they need to pick up an answer, which means this complicates the whole question for them. A problem which is not even there in the question, they are seeing that particular problem.
So they're distracting you.
They're distracting
essentially.
you. So when you see the word weakening, it's a weakening question. Out of the 4 choices, there will be only one choice which is going to definitely weaken up
Weaken
the
and-
argument.
yeah.
All the rest of the 3 will not weaken at all.
Right, right. So
They will either be irrelevant or else they will strengthen the argument, etc.
Absolutely. One more challenge that the students face, I mean, especially 2 days, 3 days before the exam when students talk, the certain category of students, most of the students, in fact, they haven't focused on the entire syllabus. Let's say, I mean, especially in the quant part. I mean, numeracy, I think more
Basic
or less
numeracy.
everybody is focusing because the number of questions in numeracy are increasing. But the other arithmetic areas, some areas they have not done, some areas they have done. They're very good at some areas. So, I mean, should it be a cause of concern for students who have left some things? I mean, because given that they have to only get about 27, 28 questions.
Anyone who is not comfortable with mathematics, anyone who has a slight phobia for mathematics, should not be touching certain topics.
Right. So even if they have not touched, it's okay. I mean, you can still manage the paper.
Yes, you can still manage.
Right.
There are some questions of probability which are scary, even for somebody who comes from a maths background.
Right.
So probability, permutation, combination, factorials. These are 4 things which a student can kick during preparation and decide that even if I have the time, I'm not going to touch these areas because they are there to scare me.
So it should not be a cause of concern.
So it
for
is not a
them
cause
in
of
that.
concern if there's a selected area which you have decided to reject. But you cannot reject too many areas.
Right.
So even if I do not come from maths background and I have a phobia for maths, I definitely can handle number systems. I definitely can handle LCM. I can handle
Ratio
ratio
proportions,
proportion. I can
percentages.
handle percentages.
Yeah.
These are simple word problems which everyone can handle.
If you convert everything to the
Yes.
money in your pocket, then naturally you
Simple
will be
interest, compound interest, all of on basically the whole of arithmetic is something which a student can handle. They're doable questions. They're
right.
preparable questions. Then comes algebra. There are certain components of algebra which can be handled. There are certain components of geometry which can be handled. There are a lot of topics from modern maths or miscellaneous topics, as some people call them. Set theory is something that everyone needs to be comfortable with. Statistics is not a problem area. So mean, median, mode, all of these kind of questions of standard deviation are things which everyone can learn.
Data interpretation.
Yes,
Yeah.
data
Yeah.
interpretation can be handled.
It
It does
can
not.
be handled by
Yes,
anybody.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the question of a data interpretation is such a long one and occupies so much of real estate on the question paper that a lot
Right.
of students who have a slight fear of mathematics at the back of their mind, they will decide not to touch that question, even though a fifth class student can do them.
True, true, true.
So,
So with that, I think students should calm their nerves, even if they have not done
yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of
If
areas. They
there,
can
if there is
still
a
manage
particular
the
area
paper.
that you have not touched at all, you should not feel guilty about it. This is an examination which is qualifying by nature, may be difficult, but it is qualifying in nature.
Right.
And because it's qualifying in nature, you can decide which are the areas that you are going to score on and which areas you will, as a wise person, as a person with a great amount of mental acuity, you will not even touch.
Right, sir. I mean, I think with so much said, I think I'm sure a lot of students will pick up a lot of things that from what you have spoken. I want to end this with one question that has been actually bothering me for some time. Sir, I mean, before preparing for this podcast, I picked up some papers and tried to solve them. Now, I am not going to give the exam, so you're not going to put me in the hot seat. I really felt that it was the situation, because it is an exam that you have attached yourself so much to, that makes the CSAT paper more difficult, as opposed to the very nature of the paper itself. If I look at it objectively as a teacher who's been teaching society, science, and technology, absolutely no background of CSAT, and not been solving any CSAT paper for some time. I did not find it. I mean, I could be very wrong in saying this, although I did not attempt the entire paper. I did not find it very difficult to get about 30 to 35 questions right. I mean, is it really the situation? Do you think that matters? I mean, is it the attachment to, I mean, I'm sure if I would have given the exam, I would not have been able to get, I mean, I don't know, without any preparation, definitely
See,
not much. But I mean, I don't know. Then
about
it's only about the situation and nothing to do with the paper then.
some of my good students, 2 months before the examination, when they call me and tell me that they're getting scared, I tell them to pick up a previous year question paper of CSAT and tell them to lie down on bed, put the question paper in front of them like this with a pen in hand, and casually look at all the questions and take answers.
Right.
Any student who has done classes will end up getting a score of at least 40-50%.
Yeah, I mean, my niece
But
who is in class 11 would be able to
yes, yes,
like
yes,
get
yes.
30 questions right
She,
because
she,
she's not in the situation.
yes, and she would find the GMA question, even if she's seeing them for the first time in her life, she will find them challenging, interesting, and she loved doing those questions. I come
Right.
across a lot of students who fall in love with the reasoning part of this paper and they ask me for more and more number of questions. And I tell them that yes, I'm facing a different problem with you guys. I don't want you to spend so much time upon CSAT because the quantum of time that you need to give to GS paper 1 is much greater.
Right.
So you need to give it the right amount of time, right amount of effort. You need to have the right attitude when you are preparing this for this paper.
Right, sir. I think with that said, I think we have to change our, I mean, one advice would be to change the relationship that you have with the
With the paper
exam.
exam, yes,
I
yes,
think
yes,
it should
yes.
not be such an abusive relationship. You should take it a little more casually. I think at least that relationship, not the exam
See,
itself,
I need to take
but
this
the
examination.
relationship
I need
with
to take this examination
the
seriously
exam.
till the time I enter into the examination hall.
Yeah.
Once I step into the examination hall, I need to tell myself I'm ready, and whatever potential I have, if I just show that potential of mine, I'll end up getting whatever score I want.
Right, right. Thank you so much, sir. I think it was a pleasure talking to you and pick your brain on few things that I'm sure students will be able to use in the next 2 days. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.